Do you know what is a fun thing to do? Make wild predictions that when you say out loud, other people look at you. That guy, we shouldn't talk to him anymore because he's crazy. It is especially enjoyable to do it in the world of professional wrestling, which is why today I, Simon Miller, welcome to What Culture Wrestling, are going to do exactly this when it comes to Triple H's tenure in the World Wrestling Entertainment Federation company that didn't work at all over the next 5 years. Make sure you go crazy in the comments too. Let's have some fun getting to it. Number 10, Liv Morgan returns to the top. So it is early days for this brand new Liv Morgan persona, but essentially ever since she did lose her championship to Ronda Rousey, her whole shtick is now, you can try and hurt me, but I absolutely love it. Now there is a lot of Harley Quinn in this character, but I'm never going to argue with that. The real joy is that WWE actually had a plan. I think we can all hold our hands up and say that her championship run wasn't all that great, especially because Ronda just murdered her on every single occasion. But the fact that we had thought what we were going to do after she dropped the title meant all of a sudden she has some momentum again. So given that we are talking about the long game here, let's get right into this and maybe even look to the past or to wrestlers like Mick Foley to try and craft some sort of a new gimmick. Because if we get it right, there is no reason why Liv Morgan cannot be one of WWE's most important assets. I mean, everyone likes her already. Imagine what happens when we get everything else right. Number 9, WrestleMania 43. Now, of course, we are going right to the end of the 5-year tenure here, but this one you can probably put in your pants and lock away, because Triple H, he likes those Roman numerals, meaning when we do get to WrestleMania 43, it is going to be XLIII. I presume. I mean, given that he did this instantly with the WrestleMania 39 logo, I don't know why all of a sudden he'd turn his back on this. And when Vince McMahon did make the decision to not have Roman numerals anymore, sometime around WrestleMania 31, what was Triple H doing down on NXT? It was just putting Roman numerals on everything. If you're interested too, Vince's thought process to all of this was, well, if I put numbers on it, it makes WrestleMania look old, and therefore we should no longer call it the granddaddy of them all either. And if you're now thinking to yourself, well, that's really weird, the answer is you are correct. It also means the big question is, what happens when we get to WrestleMania 40? So if you have grown up a wrestling fan and you've always wanted to see WrestleMania L, well, you're probably going to get it soon. Number 8, NXT is no longer on TV. Yep, here we go. Now we're getting audacious. Now, I do have to say that I like NXT because there's like a manic quality to it that you don't get in any other wrestling promotion. And do not forget, the only reason that USA Network put it on television to begin with is because we were going to have a brand new wrestling war. Now, I don't want to be that guy. And in terms of NXT versus AEW, that one's definitely done. I am still happy to sit on my high horse though and say that NXT was better as a brand when it was a WWE Network exclusive and not on TV. And while it doesn't really make a brand bit of difference where you do put it, I do believe that when you're behind a paywall, you are able to have more fun with it. If anything, you can be more creative, and given that everybody's always telling me, oh, NXT is developmental, NXT is a playground, well, surely we should go put it somewhere where you can just take advantage of all of those things. You can also protect some of the newer talent that aren't 100% ready for live television. And given when it comes to NXT that Triple H is just winding the clock back on all of it, maybe he'll do this too. I mean, is the USA Network gonna mind? Not really. They're obsessed with Raw. It'll stay the same forever now, and it'll be 2072 and NXT will still be on the USA Network. But as I've already told you, we are making grand predictions here. A lot of things are just going to come out of my mouth. Number 7, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa are main eventers. Because why wouldn't they be? Seriously. Because Triple H wasn't utilizing them as his top dudes down at NXT because he thought it was funny. He wasn't walking along corridors going, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, I'm such a card. He did it because he looked at them and went, well, they're top tier talent. I'm going to push them to the moon. He's absolutely right. The only reason we scoff over this is because we're so used to the old way WWE used to handle things that you had to be a big guy, but that is all in the past now, and with Paul Levesque taking over, who is far more flexible, I think it is more than feasible that one day down the line, you may even see Gargano versus Ciampa in a premium live event. Main event. It's also super smart because in 2022 wrestling, you always want to make sure you have a bang of a match ready to go, and you could put either one of these against anybody on the roster, and they deliver you a 4.25 star match. 5 in the Tokyo Dome. Number 6, Billy Gunn is back in the fold. Now we're just getting to the crazy guesses. time to book like insane, people. Now, clearly there is still some sort of relationship between Triple H and Billy Gunn, because when we had that D-Generation X reunion recently on Raw, everybody wanted the badass to come, and then because there was some shenanigans involved, he wasn't able to. Some people took some shots. It was what it was. When contracts are up and it's time to sign new deals, I can absolutely envision a world where WWE say, hey Bill, come on back home, we will offer you millions of dollars, we'll induct you into the Hall of Fame, and this can be pretty much the end of your career, because the dude is approaching 60. This isn't his fault either, this is just how wrestling works, and you have to figure this whole daddy ass thing will peak at some point. I mean, maybe it already is. Now, do not get me wrong, I love it and I love myself some scissoring, but there will be some point down the line where it doesn't exist anymore. You're just gonna have to accept it. It also allows the King of Kings to have access to all his guys, especially when nostalgia calls. And you don't think Billy Gunn wouldn't want to go back there for one last run? Of course he would. He's a wrestler. Hopefully it would just be a friendly situation all around as well. Because Billy Gunn helped AEW, and now Billy Gunn can help WWE. Sometimes it can just be handshakes and peaches and cream. Not everything has to be death. 5, Cody Rhodes has gone again. Told you we were gonna ramp things up. Fun, is it not? I'm having a whale of a time. Now, I don't think anybody can question the fact that Cody Rhodes timed his return to WWE perfectly, and within around about 6 months had become twice the star he ever was. Already a pretty big star. I mean, he helped build a brand new wrestling company. If he is not WWE champion or Universal champion within the next 5 years too, then somebody has made a crazy decision, because me and all the fans want this. But I just think he has the finger of his pulse, and he knows when to jump ship here and when to jump ship there. And at some point in the next half decade, he will get that feeling in his tum-tum where he goes, yeah, you know what? It's time to go back to AEW. Because when we do get to the end of the American Nightmare's contract, and he probably has raised his stock even more, you don't think there's not going to be offers all over the place? Of course there is. Everybody is going to want Cody Rhodes. If he does feel it right too, and he does smash it, I tell you, this will turn him into just an absolute legend, because he would have smashed it in AEW, gone back to WWE, smashed it there, and then probably returned to All Elite Wrestling and become the champion. And we all know about that one. So I am throwing it out into the ether, but regardless what happens, Rhodes is always going to be a success. That dude just gets it. Smart man. Number 4, the Young Bucks arrive. I mean, you knew this was coming. I'm swinging for the fences. Now, there has been 2 occasions where this felt viable. One back in 2018, before the birth of AEW, where Triple H did just say to Matt and Nick Jackson, hey, why don't you come work for me? And 2, during the fallout to the All Out 2022 press conference. After that, anything was possible. Thankfully, it's all water under the bridge, but you have to imagine there is going to be a tiny percentage chance that in the next 5 years, there will be some kind of situation where the Young Bucks are offered a deal by WWE, they are offered a lot of money, and they think to themselves, well, it would be nice to have a run there, because once again, they're professional wrestlers, they would have grown up watching the World Wrestling Entertainment Federation. I did it again. I mean, imagine Triple H offered them something like $5 million each. That is going to be so hard to turn down. And if they did go there and absolutely smash it and become proper main eventers, well, once again, much like Cody, that's just going to raise their stock. I suppose the only real reason this could stutter is that CM Punk could go back to WWE, and I can't see those folk working together again. But this is my fantasy booking land, so I'm taking that information, I'm kicking it over there. Think of it this way. Do you really think it's off the table completely? No flubbing way. Number 3, The Fiend. And the original Bray Wyatt. Because I don't think WWE can help themselves. Because whatever we are going to do with Uncle Howdy, all these spooky wooky things in professional wrestling have a shelf life, and at some point somebody backstage will go, well, I know what we could do with Bray. We could give him another run as The Fiend. And everyone will go, oh, that's fantastic. Let's tie him to nostalgia. I mean, do not pretend if we got to 2025 and we started teasing the return of The Fiend that people wouldn't freak out. I mean, that guy just sold a ton of merchandise. I mean, to be fair, even as Bray Wyatt, he's also selling a ton. But ton times ton is ton too. WWE likes cash. It also does need a proper ending, because when you go through that Persona's timeline, I mean, he got set on fire, you had that weird WrestleMania match with Randy Orton, you had everything with Goldberg. I think you do want to bring it to its natural conclusion, which would be the same with the Eater of Worlds gimmick. And if it was for me, I would get back to the original Bray Wyatt, and I would let him finish his career that way, because there was so much worth in those legs. Once again, we just cut him off. But 2, Karrion Kross. Universal Champion. Or WWE Champion. You can take your pick. We will probably have to make sure the time is right, but it is quite clear that Triple H is a massive fan of Karrion Kross and a massive fan of Scarlett. I mean, just look how that act was booked in NXT. Trips went, right, I'm going to push you to the moon, I'm going to push you past everybody, and then I'm going to send every single wrestler coming after you, but you're just going to beat all of them because I love you. So if we can get the same kind of momentum on the main roster and Paul Levesque feels it in his bones, of course he's going to pull the trigger. It wouldn't have surprised me if already in some sort of a meeting somebody had gone, well, who's going to beat Roman Reigns? Triple H would have gone, well, I've got an idea. How about Mr. TikTok Clock Cross? Now, I wouldn't do that because I think there's a variety of ways to make Karrion the champion without defeating Roman Reigns, whereas somebody else on the roster would benefit more from defeating the tribal chief. But if somebody walked in right now with a gun and said, Simon, who's Karrion Kross ever going to be the tippity-top champion in WWE? I'd say, listen, pal, you don't need to shoot me. I agree with you. He definitely will be. That's right, I said it. Can't see a reality where this doesn't happen. Also, as we did mention the person who should beat Roman Reigns, it's Sami Zayn. It's always going to be Sami Zayn. I don't care when it's not viable. I'm not living in a viable world. I'm living in a perfect one. Number one, it's not Triple H's WWE. So this is a weird one because technically it's not his WWE right now. That would go down to Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon. Because if they woke up tomorrow and decided, no, we don't want Paul Levesque on our books anymore, they could, and they won't, but they could get rid of it. Again, they won't. The point we're making here is that when you actually do go through a wrestling booker's reign, it's not all that long, and Vince McMahon was the exception to the rule. Like, if you go into the last 30 years of pro wrestling, the only person that comes close was WCW's Eric Bischoff, and he led a wrestling revolution, and he was only in charge for basically 6 years. And I know there's Jeff Jarrett and Dixie Carter, but I think you have to put a massive asterisk by all of that. So if one day the shareholders go, well, we don't think WWE is operating very well at the moment, and we want some changes, Paul Levesque's name could be dragged into that conversation. Now, do not forget, over the last 15 years or so, Vince McMahon's name also should have been brought into that conversation, but he was just Mr. WWE. He could get away with anything, which he did. So could it be the case that we get to 2027 and Triple H is doing something else entirely? I think the answer is yes. Now, do I actually think this is going to happen? No. I think Mr. Levesque is onto something here. Long may it continue. Now, please do leave a comment below and let me know your crazy predictions for Triple H over the next 5 years. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com where you can read yourself some articles. Come and follow us on social media at WhatCulture WWE and Simon Miller 316. Listen, there's a lot of videos. We put a lot of effort and time into them. Go watch one. I don't care if you leave the room. Just click play and go. My name is Simon for What Culture. Thank you very much for watching me as always. I'm hungry, so I'm gonna go eat now. I'm such a failure.